Welcome into another live edition of Betting Weekly Fast Break on this way too chilly in Boston August Wednesday. Once again, it is way too cold outside out here in the East Coast, but our Fast Break team has stayed hot, including yesterday with a 2-0 outing from Albert Nguyen, who had the Liberty and the Sun covering their respective spreads. I'm joined by professional handicapper Wes Reynolds as we look to keep this full squad hot streak going today. Wes, we've got only one game on tonight's W slate with the Wings at the Sparks late night. Do you think we can hold down the fort?
I think we can. We can maybe find something to do with whether it's this game or tomorrow's slate. But very nice job by the crew last night.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into all that. We'll get into tonight and tomorrow because there's far more games that might be less tricky to bet on tomorrow. So we'll see. But since there's only one game tonight, it might be time to give WNBA same game parlays a shot with a second chance parlay promotion. Opt in and get up to 50% of your bet back if your 3-leg WNBA same game parlay loses. Check out the BetRivers app for more details. So again, we'll get into all that and our best bets for tonight later on. But Wes, it is our first time doing the show together. I was taking a look at some of your recent work and laughed out loud, and I'm ready to get hurt again when it comes to Tommy Fleetwood and the upcoming Tour Championship. It's tough. I don't think I'm ready to get hurt again when it comes to him.
Yeah, well, I'm a sadomasochist, I guess, Sarah, because I'm ready to. I like the pain. I guess I enjoy pain, and betting on Tommy Fleetwood has given you pain, especially 2 weeks ago if you were on him like I was in Memphis. So I did play him this week. I think. This is a really weird event at the Tour Championship because you only have 30 players and you have the hottest player in the world that's darn near even money to win the thing. I think plus 150 as I last checked. And, you got to find a way probably to get exposure to him. You got to find a way to get exposure to Scotty Scheffler, maybe some exactas where Scotty on top, kind of like horse racing, put Scotty on top. And whoever you think's going to finish runner-up, like I played 3 outrights this week. I played Tommy Fleetwood, Victor Hovland, and Sam Burns. So might have some exactas there. But, gosh, I hope that we maybe get a little bit of a surprise in Atlanta this week because Scotty Scheffler, as nice of a guy and as good of a man as he seems to be, I'm sick of him winning all the time, to be honest with you.
He sounds kind of sick of it too. I mean, with his statements, which I loved. But anyway, I just wanted to bring in some of your excellent golf work. And I think I loved what you were saying about Sam Burns. I think I have him finishing in the top 3 at plus 700 on BetRivers. So in honor of our first show together, I wanted to get one of your bets and your looks in there. So we'll see with that.
Bermuda Burns. Hopefully he putts well on his preferred greens this week.
Love it. Anyways, folks, thanks for joining us today on Betting Weekly Fast Break, a basketball show. Some of us have been riding the Liberty after their slump, and Albert went that direction again last night with his bet on the Libs covering the 2.5 point spread in an 85-75 heated win over the Lynx. So let's get into that one. This was 2 of the top teams in the W battling it out without their stars. And the Liberty, for as much as they've brutally missed Breanna Stewart in the stretch, they do just have a little more scoring depth. Jonquel Jones popped off with 10 rebounds and 22 points and a double-double. Meanwhile, Sabrina Ionescu was trending in the right direction after a little bit of slumps from her with 17 points, and she shot 40% from the arc with 4 3-pointers, including the dagger. What was your read on this game, Wes?
Yeah, I did not bet this game actually last night. Market had it right and Albert had it right. Mm-hmm. I think on the Liberty, and maybe it was just kind of time for the Lynx. The Lynx have been playing very good basketball without Nafisa Collier, and the Lynx, I think, are the rightful favorites to win the title. They were my pick before the season, and they just have so much depth. And adding Dejanay at the trade deadline gives them another defender at guard. So they've had such cohesiveness, I think, Sarah, because this team, basically the core of this roster has been together multiple years with the stud buds, with Nafisa Collier, with Alana Smith, with Bridget Carlton, and a couple off the bench. So the Lynx, they were probably due for a loss, and the Liberty, John Cal Jones had a monster game. Liberty, not even just without Stewie, but without Isabel Harrison, who's been out with a concussion, and Sabali has been out for most of the season. So they've been shorthanded in terms of the roster. But I think now Misamin, having her in the fold for the last several games, they're now comfortable with her. She's filled, I think, in very admirably for Brianna Stewart in terms of a starting role. So Liberty still, I think, going to end up with that 2 seed. I think maybe they can hold off Atlanta, especially if they can get Stewie back before the end of the season. Got a what would seem to be an easy matchup with the Chicago Sky, who I've deemed unbettable on this program. But Angel did return, albeit on a minutes restriction last night in a cover against the Seattle Storm.
I think you're totally right about the Lynx. I mean, they have the clear #1 seed at this point, and it's not looking like they're going to give that up. So you kind of see, all right, there's going to be some minute management. There's going to be some waiting till FISA gets back, and just some kind of, all right, let's contain ourselves to some degree. And they had the series win over the Liberty. So just kind of one of those things where, all right, the Liberty do need to gain some momentum, get a good confidence win here. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, no question about it. So Liberty at least kind of getting back on track. You're right about Sabrina. Sabrina's props, by the way, if you look at player props, like the point props have been gradually going down because she's been going under every game. Did go 4 of 10, but 5 of 18. It did have 11 assists last night. So pretty good game for Sabs there. So Liberty, I think, I trust them to get on track. They've got championship pedigree. They're not catching the Lynx for the 1, but I think that they're probably going to hold the 2 just because everybody's so inconsistent, really, really behind them. Atlanta right now has the same record, 22-13, and Phoenix, and then Vegas has made a move. They're the hottest team in the league, but I still trust the Liberty to hang on at least to that 2 spot. I just think these other teams, they're inconsistent and they're up and down. When you think that they're riding a hot streak, then all of a sudden it stops with those teams.
Yeah, 100%. And we'll get into the Aces very shortly. But one of those teams, the Mercury, of course, and the Valks, who have been, when you talk about inconsistent, looks like they're on track to make the playoffs still. They're looking to become the first expansion team to do so. But they lost to the Mercury last night in a 98-91 loss. They've been pretty inconsistent. They're now on a 2-game losing streak. They've gone 6-4 in their last 10, which is kind of what they've needed to do. And if the playoffs started today, they'd be in as a 7 seed. So to remind us all, the top 8 of the WNBA's 13 teams make the postseason, and teams are seeded based on their regular season records. But over at Bet Rivers, the Valks are -400 to reach the playoffs and +260 to miss. What are your thoughts? Do you think they're going to end up pulling this off?
Well, I recommended a couple weeks ago on Fast Break here that the Sparks were going to make the playoffs, and now the Sparks have kind of hit a little bit of a skid. They're, I believe, 1 game out of the 8 spots. Seattle 2 in the win column, so 1 total from Seattle, who has fallen on a little bit of hard times, even though they got that win over Atlanta last Friday night. I keep waiting for the shoe to drop on the Valks here a little bit, because you wonder when they're going to run out of talent, because this is an expansion team and their all-star player out for the season, Kayla Thornton, but they play good defense and they do play together. Natalie Nakazi has done a terrific job, I think, with this team that quite frankly is maybe a little bit under-talented when you look at the teams around them that are kind of on the periphery of making or missing the playoffs. They're less talented than Seattle. They're less talented than LA, but they play together and they find a way to get it done. Still have some concerns. I don't want to say I'm a disbeliever, but I'm not an all-in believer yet on the Golden State Valkyries, because somebody is going to play their way out here, I think, at the end of the season, Sarah. Somebody's going to get a losing streak at the wrong time. Maybe it's going to be Golden State. Maybe it's going to be Seattle, but I'm still a little bit neutral on Golden State here, even though they keep hanging on and hanging in that 8 spot.
Right. It's kind of those bubble teams. It's just somebody's to lose. Someone's going to go on a losing streak. Or it's like nobody's grabbing that and saying, all right, I'm going to get, it's hard to win in the W, first of all, especially with all the injuries that are happening to these teams. But I mean, the Elks have 9 games left. They got another matchup with the Mercury, 2 more with the Wings. So there you go. 2 more with the Lynx, though. 1 more with the Liberty, Fever, Storm, and Mystic. So it's kind of, that's a toss up there when you look at their future games.
Yeah, I think so, and that's what we're going to have to look at down the stretch. We're going to have to look at the scheduling, and how many games do you have against the Wings? How many games do you have against Connecticut? How many games do you have against Chicago? Connecticut, the only team officially eliminated, but those 3 teams are pretty much done. So you have 10 for 8 spots basically here as we get down to the playoff stretch.
100%. And as you just mentioned, the currently 8th seeded Storm have just been falling apart and looking for any momentum at all after the trade deadline. They eked out a 94-88 win over the Sky, which is a start, but they're 3-7 in their last 10. What's your read on this team right now, Wes?
Not positive. I did have them on the channel last Friday against Atlanta, and they had to hang on, by the way. They had a big lead after the third quarter, and then they didn't score for the first 5 minutes. They actually trailed by 5 at one point and somehow pulled it out. Mercury got them on Sunday. They had a big lead over the Sky. Sky made a little bit of a late run. I look at this roster, and I think it should be pretty good. But something's not meshing there. I think they brought in Sykes at the deadline from the Mystics, and I don't think that's really made a bad difference, nor necessarily a good difference. It's been pretty neutral with this team, but they got to get more production, I think, inside, especially out of McBeggar. Gabby Williams has been hit or miss in recent games. Malanga, who is the project from France, that's the rookie, has had some nice games. They've got a piece there if she just continues to develop and do what she's doing long term. But I don't know. I keep waiting for thinking that experience is gonna win out with the Storm, but it's not positive. They just have not been able to put a lot of wins together. Even when they were playing somewhat decent, they were 16-11. They were having some bad losses to bad teams. A bad loss to Connecticut, where they could lose anytime to the Mystics. Lost at home to the Sparks, and then in double overtime. And then I believe about a week and a half later, Derek Hamby hits that 3-point play with like 5 seconds left to go, and they lose to the Sparks again. So the Storm, they have a chance to compete with anybody on any given night, and they can lose to anybody on any given night. And I regret, and I'm kicking myself for not betting the Sky, even though I deemed them unbettable, because that line was too high for the Storm to lay on the road, and it proved to be last night.
Well, sometimes that's the point of deeming a team unbettable. It's like there's always that 1 or 2 games where it's like, you know what? Yeah, I could have bet on that, but for the most part, we can leave it alone and be happy that we did.
Yeah, no question about it. I guess the market is always the great arbiter, Sarah, where there's always a price where even you can bet like the most dogged of teams, which the Chicago Skies certainly have been. Maybe that's going to be tomorrow with the Liberty finally getting the Lynx back, because the Lynx got them, of course, over the weekend, and the Liberty got him back. Now you got this big number tomorrow where they're laying 13.5 against the Sky.
That is very intriguing, and we will certainly get to that at the end of the episode while we place our best bet. So I like to hear that could be in the works. But like you said about the Storm, it feels like at any given night they can compete with certain teams, but they also lose to bad teams. And I feel like the opposite situation has happened with the Aces, where it's like they'd win to a good team, but they'd still be so inconsistent in the first half. And now that's why I never really had them out. And I feel like everybody has to take them seriously no matter what. And now they've kind of proved us right here. I mean, this 8-game heater has them at 13 wins in their last 16 games. They're the hottest team right now. And now they've kind of entered the chat for, I don't think they're going to get the 2nd seed, but they're the 5th right now. The 4th and 3rd are certainly, they're in contention for that. And here's a stat from before last night's game. Since Vegas's win streak started on August 3rd, A'ja Wilson has led the WNBA in scoring 26.1 points per game and rebounding 13.3 rebounds per game, while also ranking in the top 10 in both steals and blocks over the past 2 weeks. Last night, she had a casual 32 points and 12 rebounds. What's that all about?
Yeah, and I called them, I believe, a couple weeks ago. They looked like the washed Vegas Aces, actually last month, and now they've won 8 in a row and making fools out of all of us. I think Jewel Lloyd coming off the bench has certainly been a net positive for the Aces, where you can let her work a little bit offensively and let her be the lead guard with the second unit. She only had 7 last night, but she had been clearing a lot of these points props and getting double digits a few games in a row. So, they've been starting the young player, Kirsten Bell, Aaliyah Nye off the bench. Aaliyah Nye actually didn't play very much last night, but I don't know how much of a believer I am of the Aces, though. I think now the market is caught up with the streak. They're hosting the Mercury tomorrow, who they beat late in Phoenix on Friday night. So 2.5 point favorites, which basically is what they were last night against the Dream, where they pulled it out late and won by 2. I'd be leaning Mercury, at least the early numbers here, and I think the market has kind of come in on the Mercury with that nice win in Golden State pulled away in the fourth quarter. So Mercury might get a little short-term payback from losing last Friday night. I think it's a buy and sell proposition, I think, here, where maybe this is the time to sell the Aces at the top of the market, because I do think that they have a limited ceiling.
Yeah.
They obviously were better than we thought that they were maybe about 3 weeks ago, but I still don't believe in them for the title. I don't think that when we get into a playoff series, they're as good as the Libs, they're as good as Minnesota, and maybe not even as good as Atlanta or Phoenix. I think that they're probably right where they are, the 5th best team in the W, and I think that that's their ceiling this year.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. And when you look at just kind of Wilson's numbers, I mean, if anything were to happen to re-aggravate an injury or anything, it's like they're totally screwed.
Yep.
So I mean, good for them for having this run that they're on. And I agree with the buying versus selling. When we talk about it in a gambling context, it reminds me of kind of what the Liberty versus Sparks a few weeks ago, where Liberty started their road trip and the Sparks had been on a heater as well, and it was time for them to start slowing down a little bit. So that's part of the fun of betting, where you look at, okay, this team has been doing well and it's great, the market is caught up, how can we kind of fool the market and maybe be 2 steps ahead of it?
Yeah, and that's what you have to do. You have to be willing to kind of buy when a team is struggling and sell when a team is playing well. And I think maybe the sell spot is going to start to come for the Aces tomorrow night against Phoenix, and then they've got a long road trip now. Mystics, Sky, the following 2 games. That road trip, by the way, starts on Saturday, and then they go to Atlanta. So a lot of road games for the Aces before they conclude with that homestand.
Yeah, great point. They've been at home pretty heavily too, and that definitely helps, especially with other teams coming in and getting the Vegas flu or what have you. But yeah, that'll be a true test for them on the road, of course, and it's kind of interesting to see. I feel like they are a team, though, when you look at the playoffs, that seeding could really help. Like they could defeat one of maybe the worst playoff teams, just spitballing there for the future.
Yeah, because they definitely look, you want to play into those top seeds, of course, which they're very much in the mix, because you obviously be getting perhaps a Golden State, who is still an expansion team. And are they ready? Are they ready for a playoffs? You got a Storm team struggling. You got my Indiana Fever, being an Indianapolis native. Do they have even enough healthy bodies to finish the season now that they've lost 3 for the season? And then your superstar has been out for the bulk of the season. We have no timetable yet for Caitlin Clark's return. They were saying a couple weeks ago, sometime end of August, but she hasn't even returned to practice yet. So who knows when that's going to happen. And now the Fever at 19-16 in the 6th spot, they've got to hang on for dear life a little bit here down the stretch with a very tough schedule, starting with a home and home with the Lynx on Friday and Sunday.
I know. I'd be really proud of them. I mean, Kelsey Mitchell with that comeback win the other day. And I mean, as I think she's figuring it out, right? My criticisms of her are it's hard for her to stay consistent, but then you kind of look at the injuries, especially she wasn't expecting to perhaps be in the role that she's in right now with Clark out, but she's really stepped up to the plate when need be. And then there are times where she'll have an off game, but that's just kind of part of the process, I guess.
Because I think she's a natural scorer where she's good, I think, at creating offense for herself, but she's not a traditional point guard where she can create for others, where she's going to be the distributor for a pick and roll with Aaliyah Boston, which Caitlin Clark obviously excelled at. And, getting everybody involved, getting Lexi Hall involved too. She's the one that I think has missed Caitlin the most. Where she's just really struggled because Caitlin knew where to find her on those open threes, and she hit the big three, by the way, on Sunday, which eventually put Connecticut away, where they came back from 22 down, and Kelsey Mitchell, I think, missed her first 9 shots and ended up with 38 in the game. So, she's going to have to carry even more of the load now without Sophie Cunningham, as that got announced yesterday that she's out for the season with the knee injury. So, Fever have been a resilient bunch all year long. Can they stay resilient in these final 10 games?
I don't see why not, honestly. But my concern is like what you mentioned with what is the line between, okay, if Clark doesn't want to further hurt, you don't want a player like that or anybody at all to risk future injury. And you look at the nature of that injury, it's best to make sure you are 120% healed for the future of a player like this, especially when the Fever, it's not like they're going to come in and like win the championship this year.
Right.
Maybe they could, anything's possible, but where are you at with getting Clark in?
Yeah, I think that they wanted to try to find a spot for her at the end of the month, and that's where I was thinking when Stephanie White came out and said, end of August. So I was thinking, okay, what's a good spot for her? Maybe the 26th against the Storm before you've got that road trip, because they got to go play the Sparks on the road and they got to go play the Valks. By the way, the Fever have beaten neither of those teams all season. I think they've lost 2 to the Valks and they're 0-3 against the Sparks and the Mercury. That's a tough West Coast road trip
Yeah.
to get into September before you get the Sky at home and at Washington, and then close with Minnesota. So you got 3 games left with Minnesota, namely the next 2. So not a lot of easy ones. You still got one more at the Sky, but there's no more with Dallas. There's no more with Connecticut. And that's why Doug and I a couple weeks ago talked about, hey, under 24.5 wins. Like, this team's not winning 25 games. Now at Bet Rivers, by the way, it's 22.5. So that has certainly been adjusted. And that's part and parcel. The Cunningham injury probably is baked into that as well. But just the schedule for the Fever, because they lost a couple at home that I think they were projected to win. They lose to the Wings outright as like 8-point favorites. They lose to the Mystics outright. So those are 2 games. They'd be sitting, I think, a lot prettier here and with a lot more, room for error, shall we say, or margin for error had they won those games. But now going to have to steal 1 or 2 against teams that you're going to be underdogs against. We'll see if the Fever can do it. They've certainly been resilient most of the season.
Yeah, I kind of think they love that underdog mentality where some teams, it's like they do things to make things interesting for themselves to kind of get up for the game. And I will say with the Lynx in the number 1 seed, kind of not all but locked down. It might be nothing's easy, right? They might want to have even more incentive after the Commissioner's Cup and what have you to spoil things for the Fever. So actually, it's going to be a really rough road ahead, but I cannot see them missing the playoffs. Like,
I
they're in
wouldn't
the
think
playoffs.
so either. That's what my gut says too, Sarah, that they somehow, some way make the playoffs. It's kind of like too late to turn back now, and that's their mentality. But running out of bodies, just no point guards. I mean, to not only having lost Caitlin, your chief point guard, but Ari McDonald going down and Sid Colson going down. They've been running Sophie a little bit at the point, so it's like, who's left? They did bring in Odyssey Sims, who had a nice game over the weekend against Connecticut, but I don't know if you can expect that night in and night out. So Stephanie White, got her hands cut out, or got her work cut out for her, but I think that they're going to hang on because I just don't know if there's enough chasers that can make up ground.
Yeah, 100%. It's tough because I was with you on the Sparks, and then I'm looking at what they're doing. They're kind of defense is always the devil with them, and it's starting to creep back in that way.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think it's a little bit of a catch-22 because Cameron Brink, who's back from her injury, her offensive game is not there yet. It's still very much a work in progress. But defensively, they are much better with her defensively on the floor. So I think Lynn Roberts, you're doing that pace and space and get up and down the floor and high scoring games. got to find a way to get Brink, I think, more minutes, because Derica Hamby, for as much as she gives you offensively, is not like major resistance at the rim, whereas Cameron Brink is from a shot blocking standpoint, just altering shots, not even blocking them. And I think, they're trying to probably bring her along a little bit with their minutes because she came back from that long layoff for the injury where she missed pretty much the entire year last season. So I'm going to be interested to see how they, get Cameron Brink a little bit more involved minutes wise, because she's still only playing like about 12 minutes a game or so. I'm looking, and it declined. I know the Liberty, she only played like 5 minutes, but she played 12 against Dallas, 12 against the Mystics. So I feel like you've got to have her on the floor a little bit more for some defense, because the Sparks just not resistant at the rim right now, but they've got a lot of offensive talent. And, that's why we were saying earlier, this team, the Sparks, it's tough to bet unders on their player props, because I get involved in a lot of player props here in the W, and low limits, of course, but you're getting involved, and you think, okay, maybe these are priced too high on the Sparks, and somehow Kelsey Plum, Azure Stevens, Rakia Jackson, who's been on fire of late, Derica, all these players end up going over. So I was trying to look for a spot to see, okay, is there maybe an under here? Because that's a high total tonight, 183.5, but two not very good defenses, certainly. So maybe the only prop I would look at is perhaps Cameron Brink over 5.5 points, assuming she's going to get more minutes tonight. But otherwise, I didn't see anything that really stood out.
Well, you make a great point, because the last time the Sparks and the Wings played, Cam Brink had a fantastic game, and she put up more minutes than she had been, if I believe I remember correctly, or she at least should have, because she had a really great game. So I feel like what you're saying right now, and yeah, of course you have to ease somebody back in after a season-ending ACL tear in your rookie year, right? But I think at this point, it's kind of, you need to let her play, unleash her, and she seems like she wants to be unleashed too. I know she has her podcast and she talks all the time about how she just wants more minutes to kind of get back into it as much as she can. So I understand from a health and keeping her healthy standpoint, you have to be careful with that. But I think they've been careful while they were on their hot streak, right? And then it's like, all right, you're not on the hot streak anymore, and you have a few games in hand to kind of have an opportunity to make the playoffs right now. It's time for the push, especially perfect opportunity right here against the Wings, a team where she really showed up and showed out the most in probably any game since she returned. And why wouldn't she? Because it's the Wings that are kind of might as well lose mode. So, but is this a trap game, being like the Sparks are in must win mode and the Wings are in might as well lose?
Could very well be. We saw it with the Mystics last night, losing at home to Connecticut, they're the only team officially eliminated from the playoffs, even though the Sky, for all intents and purposes, and Dallas are eliminated as well, or soon to be. Uh, and Connecticut got Washington at home, and now Washington's on the outside looking in with this young team. Washington's kind of weird, because I don't think that they're quote unquote tanking, but I don't think if they miss the playoffs, it's a big deal, because they are building obviously with the youth movement with Sonia Citron and Kiki Arifin, and getting Georgia Moore back next year from injury. She's missed the season. So they're trying to build with the youth movement. They still compete and they still try, but I don't. They're thinking long term there in Washington, and I think that's probably the right way to think. But the Sparks right there to try to get into the playoffs right now. Dallas still experimenting. I think Dallas. We know this is a rebuild around Paige Bueckers, and trying to find maybe a couple players that we think, okay, they can be part of this organization going forward. Maddie Segrist, Maddie the Batty, has played very well of late for Dallas. I think she could be a nice rotation piece for them going forward. Isaiah James has had her moments this year, a young rookie. So that's what the Wings are trying to figure out. We know that Arike Ogunbowale, who, by the way, is out with an injury indefinitely, she's probably going to be dealt in the offseason. This is all about rebuilding from the bottom up, starting with Paige Bueckers. I think this Dallas team still tries, but they're tough to figure out for me. But that said, I don't necessarily want to lay it with the Sparks here in this spot. I think you are getting a little bit of an inflated number.
Right. I was eyeing maybe the Wings covering the spread because it's 8. Like, I think maybe I could see them giving the Sparks a close game, or the Sparks kind of, they are focused on winning right now. They're not focused on winning by 8 points, 9 points. You know what I mean? That I think maybe they're just trying to get out alive, but at the same time, the Wings are really bad. But the Sparks might need this. I don't know. It is a tough one to bet on. I'm like going back and forth in my brain. It feels like a good idea to take the Wings covering the spread. Then it seems like the worst idea of all time.
Yeah, 8.5 now, actually,
Oh,
at
they're
Bet
moving.
Rivers. So we are seeing a little bit of movement. And I think that's because it's taxed in a number that the Sparks have certainly more to play for. To stay kind of on the periphery of that 8 spot in contention here. They're currently in the 9 spot behind Seattle. So yeah, I understand why there's a little bit of that tax in the number. It could be a little overtaxed, but this is one. I don't want to force something here, and I'm not going to necessarily with this one. Probably going to be a high scoring game. We've seen the total move up. 181 was the opener globally, and now seeing 183, even some 183 and a half at Bet Rivers.
Mhm.
I'm not really trying to get in front and bet Sparks unders necessarily, because that's sometimes what I like to do when it's like, okay, now the number is getting out of whack, but it never seems to. They always find a way to be in these high scoring games with that pace that Lynn Roberts wants to run and wants them to play fast and get shots up in very short order. And then the fact that they allow plenty of points at the rim. So nothing for me on this one. Would lean your way though with Dallas at plus 8.5, just with the tax number.
Yeah, I think let's discuss Thursday night slate, and then I'll lock in my best bet and see if it's going to be that or not. So we can look here. Sky versus Liberty. Is that, which one are you eyeing for Thursday?
Yeah, Sky plus 13.5 would be a lean
Okay.
here at
Mhm.
this standpoint. I want to see, of course, if Angel is going to be on the minutes restriction. She was last night, but I think ended up playing like 26 or 27 minutes because Sky made a late run, and maybe there was a little bit of false hope there, right? It's like,
Mhm.
oh, we're still in this game, even though you knew that they weren't going to win the game. They end up losing by 6 and covering the numbers. So do want to see that if she's still on a minutes restriction or not before I bet that. But because I did bet the under rebounds last night with her, and it did get there. You're always worried about the me bounds because she can get 4 or 5 in like 2 seconds. It seems like. So was a little worried about that. She did go over her points. Was actually very efficient shooting the ball last night. So I would lean Sky. Mystics, this might be a comeback here on the Mystics. This is obviously major must win for them. They just lost at
Mhm.
home. Now they go on the road with just one day in between to play the very same team. So I'd be looking Mystics money line here. It's 2.5 on the spread. So 140-ish, 150 on the money line, I think is worth a look on the Mystics. And then Mercury, especially it's at 2, I think, at Bet Rivers now. If I can get 2.5 or 3, I'm eyeing the Mercury. I like them in the spot. Lynx Dream is gonna be an absolute pass for me. Lynx, by the way, 1.5 point favorites, 159.5 on the total right now. I'm gonna pass on that because I think that's coin flip because the dream come off a tough loss. And then even though you go back home, now you got to play the Lynx, who are off a loss. So kind of a tough spot for the Dream. I see why the Lynx are getting a little bit of the early market support, but
Mhm.
the Dream are certainly capable.
100%. And they're fighting for seeding too, as well as one does. So we'll look at that too. And I tomorrow will be on the show again, and I will give probably a Mystic Sun bet. I have been having success with Kiki overs. She has been really hitting those
I
overs for
played
me.
some of
And
those
that's,
rebounds. Yeah,
yeah.
I played them a couple times. She had a fantastic game against Dallas, where I played, I think, over the combination, the PR, the points, rebounds, and she absolutely smashed in that game. So they're playing her a little bit more, and there's a reason why Aaliyah Edwards was dealt to Connecticut in that J.C. Sheldon deal, because Kiki, I think, has been the goods here as a rookie.
100%. That's what I was going to say after the trade deadline. And you're right. What this Mystics team is probably one of the most curious cases in the WNBA right now, because they traded away veterans, right? And it's like the front office and the players might be having like, they are putting a vote of confidence in the Kikis saying, hey, we want you to be the future. We believe in you. Go off, but also maybe don't go off that hard. Because they're not
Hmm.
going to tell a player that, but like theoretically, yeah, we're going to kind of take these guys away right now. We don't really necessarily need you in the playoffs right now. You're not going to maybe get past the first round realistically. So we're going to kind of make these deals at the deadline right now and put our chips on the table for you. And I think Kiki has taken the extra minutes and the extra vote of confidence and has really shown exactly why they made those moves. And there she's making the team look good, as are the other youngins. And I think it's fun to do prop bets on players like that in this context. It's hard with the rest of the teams when it gets to load management if you're on either spectrum of like winning and losing right now. But I think with the Mystics, the prop bets are fun.
They are, and you know, I don't see it up at Bet Rivers right now because it's probably a foregone conclusion that Paige Bueckers is going to win Rookie of the Year. But I think it should be closer than people think. I really do. I think we made a lot of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and how close it was, and it ended up not being that close in the
Mm-hmm.
Rookie of the Year market. That was kind of a media narrative to kind of push this horse race. I think Sonia and Paige are closer than the media would indicate. I really do, even though I think Paige is going to win Rookie of the Year and she was the star at UConn. She's obviously was the number one pick in the draft. But man, I think Sonia Citrone is making a really good case to be Rookie of the Year.
Right. And I don't think it necessarily has to be unanimous. Like if I had to choose, I'd probably choose Paige just because the context of who she's dealing with and kind of
Sure.
what situation she's in. And just, I love the Flash. It's okay. I love it. I'll admit that. But at the same time, I think there deserves to be a conversation for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And then MVP, we've seen a little bit of odds droppage, even though Nafisa
Mhm.
Collier -$4. Doug and I have had Doug Kazari and I have had this conversation. I still think Nafisa Collier is going to win the MVP. I know she's missed a lot of games, but this is kind of like the president of the league, right? She's the one that everybody likes, and she helps, was really the leader in starting Unrivaled. And I think that
Mhm.
matters to players. And I think that matters to some of the media because she started a league that allowed women's basketball players in this country to make money without having to go overseas. And I think that's a big feather in her cap, even though we've now seen at Bet Rivers, by the way, Aja Wilson plus 275, Alyssa
Mhm.
Thomas a little bit over $4 with when she had that triple double streak about a week ago. I still think this is fees to lose. We'll see when she comes back, though. Maybe the final couple games of the regular season.
It's a really tough one, I think, now because Wilson, we can I know I am an NHL awards voter, and I think all the things that go into it, of course, no, it's not a player's fault if they miss X amount of games. It's kind of okay, you look at what their team is doing without them a little bit. You also look at it's unfortunate because I do think there's a bias to hold on to what like, and it's interesting to have this perspective when you're talking about betting on an award, right?
Hmm.
Because it is human element of what is the bias of the voter. And I think a lot of times when you had somebody in mind for so long, you don't want to mess that up. And you want to kind of, you were like thinking about that primarily. And FISA didn't do anything to lose it. So I think that aspect is there too. And I think Wilson, I mean, she's had her injuries too. And looking at what the team has been able to be doing in the past few weeks, though, it has been truly incredible. And I think if she keeps it up, she deserves to be in the conversation for sure, way more than maybe the beginning of the year. But I think we like defense. I think we like how Fisa kind of represents the league and how she represents the Lynx and the way that they win. And
Hmm.
I think they've had their best shot to win the championship this year, and it's because of her. And I think she's made a statement that defense matters, and I like that.
Yeah, and it seems like every group, like every clique in the league, like is cool with Nafisa Collier. Like there's
Yeah.
never any beef with her, and of course she's part of the Yukon group that is pretty big and sticks
Yes.
together. By the way, in the WNBA, so I just think not only her performance on the court, but I
Mhm.
think like politically, you know. She is
Yes.
really one of the faces of the league and great in interviews and great in the media and a great teammate and a great leader. And that's why I think, even though you've seen it drop a little bit because Alyssa Thomas went on that triple double barrage. But yeah, I think Fee is going to be your MVP, even with Aja putting up these massive numbers the last few games.
Yeah, and you think about these are the things you think about when you're talking about betting on an award. You People might be deserving of something, but you also don't want like voters have voter fatigue sometimes when it comes to like twice in a row or what have you.
Right.
So it's things to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. We see that in the NBA really all the time, where they didn't want to give it to Giannis like 3 years in a row, and everybody's going to fight that. Nikola Jokic fights that. So you see the awards fatigue, and you deal with that obviously as an NHL voter. I think that fatigue though is going to be very real, and that's another feather I think in Nafisa Collier's cap for MVP this season.
Yeah, 100%. So that's something I would never bet on a different person winning that. I mean, you can if you want, but I would steer people against that one unless you want to vote for Tisa still. But I think I'll sit that one out.
Yeah. I think it's a good idea at this standpoint, because I know a lot of people when they bet these awards markets, they want to get a long shot. It's like, oh, they want to take on the favorite here, but it's like, sometimes they're a big favorite for a reason, and I think you
Mhm.
see that here.
Yeah, it was like SGA for final MVP. It's just kind of yeah, he was going to do it. Like it's tough to bet against that for a reason. But all right, let's wrap this up with our best bets of today. What do you got?
Nothing on tonight's game, but let me go with something for tomorrow on the W card. And uh you know what, let's go with the Mercury. Let's go with the Mercury +2 against the Aces tomorrow night.
It's going to be a banger of a game, and I'm with you on that. That feels like momentum's colliding a little bit.
Yeah, no question about it. I think maybe a good sell spot for the Aces, who have been the hottest team in the league. Definitely have won 8 in a row. I think Merc get a little payback here tomorrow night from last Friday's close loss.
Yeah, yeah. I think looking at kind of the recent past and the spread as it is right now, I am going to have the Wings covering the spread tonight. That'll be my bet.
All
I'm
right.
feeling it.
All right. I don't disagree with that. I'm certainly not wanting to lay the sparks here, and but I think it's taxed in kind of like maybe not a must win, but probably should win
Yes. Yeah.
situation. I guess every game's a must win with only less than 10 to go, and trying to get one of those final playoff spots. So I didn't bet that as of yet, but if I did, it would be Dallas.
Yeah. I like that. All right. I'm not so bullish on it, but I think I'll put a small wager on it, like in
Okay,
my bankroll.
for
So
some
we'll do
interest,
that.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, we'll be back tomorrow, and I think I'd go with Wes's bet over mine for today or tomorrow because I think that's one I'd be more bullish on. But guys, thank you so much for joining us, and subscribe and like if you liked hanging out with us. We'll be back again tomorrow. And Wes, thank you so much for joining me on Fast Break today.
Thank you, Sarah. Great to